Dr. Blau?
Yeah. Yes, hello, Mr. Kim.
Yeah, I'm very pleased that, for you to have time. First of all, I very appreciate your invitation to your prestigious law firms. And now I'd like some questions about yourself and your firms, especially focused on the interrelationship between Korea and Germany. And as far as I know, it's like after EU and Brexit, I think the German and the Frankfurt is becoming much more important. And in this regard, Korean lawyers and Korean companies very interested in entering the EU market through the Frankfurters. And as far as I understand, you are the president of German Korean Lawyer Association. Yes. How long have you been a president of the German Korea Lawyer Association?
Yes, I think for about 6 years already. Before I had been a member of this association and already participated in meetings.
Yeah, I think the most of the legal professors and legal professionals they had experience in studying German laws here in Germany, and therefore I think it's the German Korea Lawyer Association has important functions in the interrelation, establishing good working relationship between Korea and Germany. And would you just explain about what is the German Korea Lawyer Associations and the basic functions and any other information in that organization?
Yes, I think in the past there had been many Korean students in Germany for law, since Korea took over the German legal system, the civil code, yes. and therefore it's much influenced by German law, and the German universities of law have a high reputation, also in Asia and in particular in Korea, and therefore there were many students from Korea coming to German universities preparing their doctorate thesis here, and therefore many professors of German law school had a connection to Korea due to these students. So in criminal law, but also in civil law and constitutional law, all these fields of law, there were these connections, and that was a basis for this association to have a platform for these people from Korea and from Germany working together in this field. And then there are also many lawyers in Germany of Korean origin. Their parents are Korean. They had grown up in Germany, studied law, so they have this family connection to Korea, and therefore also these people meet there for networking, and that's also one of the cornerstones of this association.
Okay, but how many German Korean lawyers in your organizations?
Yes, I think there are perhaps 30 or so of these people who are of Korean origin and are practicing law in Germany. Many of them are working in legal departments of companies, some in law firms, others in legal departments.
Okay, I see. But nowadays, like Germany is becoming more important in the EU groups, and especially as for the Frankfurt. Frankfurt is one of the important financial center, because of a recent President Pyongyang. And in that regard, what do you think about that? And what is your future prospects for the future of your German and also Frankfurt? Maybe it's two broader questions, but because nowadays Korean companies and the Korean legal profession is very eager to enter EU legal market, but they are a little difficult because some language barrier, especially the young Korean lawyers, like they are speak English somewhat fluently, but they are not good in the German or the French language and other languages as well, and therefore, but as I experienced, like most of German people are very fluent in English, unlike the French people, and therefore, I think it is it's very Frankfurt is especially very convenient places in terms of entering the German legal market. Also, in terms of the transport, it's like locations, and it's very convenient. And also, thanks to because of the Brexit, is most of important international financing institutions is considering moving into the Frankfurt, as far as I understand. And in that regard, do you have any comments about that, about the future of German and Frankfurt?
Yes, I think and there's a large Korean community in Frankfurt since a long time already, close to 10,000 Koreans working here, and Frankfurt really has become the center of the Korean business in Europe. There are the European headquarters of the companies, there are R&D centers, there are distribution organizations. Frankfurt is a good place, and you have these very good flight connections between Frankfurt and Korea, and you have very good flight connections to all the other European states, and in particular also to Eastern Europe. Therefore, Frankfurt really is such a basis, and the Koreans find everything here, the Korean churches and restaurants and culture clubs and music, all the whole infrastructure for Koreans you find here in the Frankfurt area. Therefore, it's an important place. There also had been many Koreans in London, but as you mentioned, due to the Brexit, Frankfurt is getting more and more important. And as far as the language is concerned, it's also a good place, since people are used to speak English in Frankfurt. So if you don't speak German but speak English, you will not have many problems to live in the Frankfurt area. So it's not such a difference to London in this respect. And therefore it will play an increasing role in this respect. As far as manufacture is concerned, the Korean companies usually prefer to do their investments in Eastern Europe, since there the wages are lower and social benefits, so it's much cheaper, and therefore, for example, Poland or Czechia or Slovakia also are the places where they prefer to manufacture their goods. It's typical for the car industry, the Korean car industry. They have a distribution in Germany, they have their R&D and development design center for Europe in the Frankfurt area, but manufacture is in Czechia and Slovakia and in Turkey, not in Germany. So that's the way it works. Frankfurt is a headquarter for distribution and some developments, but not the headquarter of manufacture.
Yeah, I fully understand. Normally, just most of the Korean bank and also some automobile companies or tire company that's is located just the regional office in Europe is located in the Frankfurt. But yeah, as you mentioned before, just maybe manufacturing facilities located in Eastern European area. Yeah, I fully understand. But and therefore, you said you just suggested to us just Frankfurt is a very good place for the Korean companies to enter the EU market as a gate. And in that regard, I think that we should, as for the Korean company perspective, is that the company should just fully aware of the German culture. And I think, as far as I understand, your wife is also Korean.
Yes, my wife is Korean. She came to Germany in 1970 as a nurse. There were 10,000 Korean nurses in Germany, 5,000 stayed here in Germany, and many of them married a German husband. And so I know the Korean culture from the family side.
And therefore, I think you are the right person to compare the German and the Korean cultures. And would you just give me some explanations in terms of influence of families and the kind of dispute resolutions developed in the Korean observed by yourself during the last 30 years? Would you give me some comments about that?
Yes, of course, there are cultural differences and that you can see, and therefore I think many Koreans in Germany like to stay a lot together with other Koreans, since it's the same language, the same culture, and as the European culture or German culture for some people is a bit strange perhaps, as they're used to the Korean one. The difference is clearly that groups and families play a large role in Korea. In Germany, in Europe it's more individual, the culture is more individual, the families don't play such a role, there's less influence of families. Of course, in the past the Korean families also had been very large. You had many brothers and sisters, and therefore also for this reason the family was important. Nowadays they're changing completely in Korea. Korean families are even some now smaller than German ones. They have less children than the Germans, and the birth rate is extremely low. And that also will change the culture, of course, in Korea in the long run. So it will become a bit more similar to the European one.
Yeah, you are right. Yes, because Korean culture is becoming more westernized, and therefore nowadays not much difference, and maybe just Korea and Germany will share some comments.
As far as dispute resolution is concerned, and I think in the past there was an attempt, and usually an attempt not to go to court in Korea to find a solution, amicable solutions, and not this kind of litigation as you are used in the US in an extreme way. But they're changing a bit. The legal system is changing, and the culture is changing in this respect. There's such a high influence of the US legal system now, since also due to language reasons, Koreans very often are studying in the United States now. They become used to the US legal system, to this kind of litigation, which is quite usual there. So there's a cultural influence which is also changing this a bit, I would say.
You're right. And also we just adopted recently just the American legal system, such as law school. And therefore it's just the number of Korean lawyers is becoming much more and therefore just any dispute resolution will be just in the court proceedings. Previously just amicably they try to amicably resolve the dispute, but nowadays they bring the claim before the court, and therefore it's like the culture has been becoming changed. Yeah, but it's just change the topics. Would you say something?
No, I only wanted to mention that the German system of litigation is quite different to the US one. There's much less fact-finding, it's much cheaper, much less detailed, and it's really a different system also in France, on the whole continent. It's different to the UK and US system, and therefore I think if a German company is confronted with US litigation, they are getting mad about this.
Yeah, Korean companies.
Yes. And therefore I'm wondering whether it's a good idea if Koreans are too much influenced by the US legal system US litigation. I believe economically that does not make too much sense. And Americans, I think, spend 3% of the gross national product on litigation and so on legal disputes, and that's very often a waste of money, a waste of time and resources.
Yeah.
And I prefer a more streamlined legal system which is more effective as the one in countries like Germany.
Yeah, I just definitely agree with you, but it's a problem. Just international disputes occurred, then just maybe basically the applicable laws is American system, then possibly just or just the court, the United States court is involved in this case, then just the discovery process will begin, which cost a lot, maybe just almost 50% of legal fees occurred at the discovery stage, and therefore we just fully understand what you said, and just but problem is like it's not so easy. That is a problem, but I fully you just basically adapted your legal systems. I think also we believe that your legal system is very effective, less cost, and also cost-effective system. But just nowadays, like American is a culture and the power is dominant in all of the world, and therefore it affected the legal proceeding as well. And therefore, I think you also think that it is a problem because too many lawyers and the court proceedings too costly, and it takes too much time. And that is a problem. But maybe this kind of thing should be changed, and yeah, I fully agree with you in terms of the effectiveness of your legal systems, continental legal systems, which is more less costly and just how can I say, it doesn't take long, but on the other end, American legal proceeding is quite different. And at the discovery stage, it's a very good systems, but it takes too much time and it costs a lot, and that is a problem. Just I would like to change the kind of topics. But I just currently you are you are facing the threat by North Korea, and some in the peninsula, Korean peninsula areas is some kind of there is too much unstable situations. And what is the perspective on the future of the Korea situations concerning the unification? Because you are just even if you are the German lawyers, you are just used to Korean cultures, and you are much more interest and you had paid just close attention to the situation in the Korean peninsula. Do you have some?
Yes, in Germany we had a different situation since GDR, Eastern Germany, was a kind of colony of the Soviet Union, and when the Soviet Union collapsed under Gorbachev, the whole Eastern Europe collapsed, including Eastern Germany. So it really was dependent on Russia, and when Russia did not support the communal system anymore with their military, then it could collapse, and we could have reunification. In Korea it's different, since the North Korean system nowadays does not depend much on other countries. They don't depend much on Russia. Mm-hmm. They economically they depend, of course, on China to some extent, but only to some extent. And politically they are rather separate from China, and therefore it's a different situation. China, of course, could, if they close the borders to North Korea, perhaps they could change the situation. But even this is not quite sure, since the regime in North Korea would continue to exist, and then they would exist on a poorer economic basis perhaps, and maybe that there will be starvation again, but that would not mean automatically that the system will collapse. And their interest is by their military weapons to safeguard the power of the Kim family, and it cannot be expected that they will start to attack, since as they know that that would be the end of North Korea and of this family, and therefore they just want to have the status quo and will continue in this way. So, and of course internally nothing will happen, since everybody knows that if he will try to criticize the system, he will not live any longer. So internal riots also can be excluded. So therefore it could be that it will continue for some time in this way. As far as the military situation is concerned, there's always the risk that by accident something happens, that maybe some incident which will develop in a way which can't control it anymore, and had always been a risk, but I think this risk has become more important now, since they have more dangerous weapons there, and we have a government in the United States which is a bit unstable, so there's a higher risk in this respect. I think the South Koreans can't do much. They can open Kaesong again, but that will not change the situation, and in principle it's the influence of South Korea is not much. I know many people in South Korea are concerned that they have to pay a lot of money in case of reunification, but if it happens, it will happen and they have to pay. South Korea can't control this. If there's reunification, it is there and they can't avoid it, and they have to pay much. On the other hand, would also be an economic chance for the country to have a higher population, to have a larger country. That for tourism it's very interesting, since they have extremely nice landscapes in the north, and so it would develop well. So I think that reunification would be much better, not only for the North Koreans, but living on a very on an extreme low level, even having not enough food, but also for the South Koreans it would be a much safer and better situation. So I think that would be a good perspective, but nobody knows when it will happen. It's completely impossible to predict what will happen in this respect.
Okay, but unfortunately, young people apparently they don't like the unification because it costs a lot. But there are some kind of pessimistic views about the unifications. But how about you think it's like in the near future, like you are much more optimistic about the unification of Korea?
One day it will happen, since it's completely artificial. It's one culture, one language, one people, and it's completely artificial. So one day it will happen, but nobody knows when. And I think it's clear that it will happen. And when it will happen, the younger people must know that the present situation is very dangerous for them, since if something goes wrong, they run the risk of their life. As in Germany, there was a very critical situation, the Cuba crisis 1961, that was very dangerous for the people in Western Germany. If war had started, the Germans would have been the first who had been killed, and also in Korea you always run this risk. Seoul is so close to the North Korean border, so it's a dangerous situation. So it's much better to pay some money and to have safety than the present situation. That's true. And they have the chance to go to North Korea to see these nice areas of Korea, to go to Pakistan and all of this. That will be a chance for these people as well.
Okay, but I think there is good tips to the young people who just might be skeptical or just pessimistic about the unifications. I think I fully understand what you said, and I think it's better for the Korean young people to carefully listen to what you said. Yeah, I hope so. And yeah, thanks for your just the perspective is a good outcome after the reunification of Korea. I appreciate it. And now it's just maybe just we are more focused on your firms, and just your firm is a total number of lawyers around 120s, and you have 4 branches in Germany, and Frankfurt is Milan, and Berlin, and Dresden, and as far as I know, like that. And also you are very prestigious law firms. I think around the top 30, something like that. And would you just explain your firms, and even if it's you, I think I heard that you just your firm, and also you represent the Korean companies, several Korean companies, and but it is not quite well known to Korean companies so far, and therefore just would you just give some explanation about yourself and including your law firm?
Yes, yes, our law firm does a lot of work for international companies. I personally worked a lot for Asian and American law firms, the companies in the past, since yes, you know, there are a lot of American-based law firms just in Frankfurt, but there are not many larger German law firms doing the international work as we are doing, as an independent German law firm working for international companies, so doing the German work for example, US or Asian companies. That's one part of our work. We are doing a lot of M&A work for them, so when they buy companies in Germany, we support them when buying the German companies, and then later on we are supporting them in legal advice for these German subsidiaries which they have. So typically my job is that I have this close connection to the US or foreign management of these companies, the international legal department based in other countries in Asia or the United States or so, and then at the same time having this close relationship with the managing directors and salespeople and HR people and so on in Germany and at these German affiliates, and to balance the legal issues between the German management and the US management, or the Asian management, or French, sometimes French or English or whatever. So primarily I'm doing work for such international companies where the headquarters are outside of Germany, but there are some affiliates in Germany for manufacture, distribution, R&D, and all of this in several fields of business, like medical devices or chemicals or distribution or whatever.
Okay. But currently, Korean Korean government has opened the Korean legal market to the foreign companies, the foreign law firms, and allowed now just the foreign law firms may just establish their own subsidiary in Korea, and also hire some Korean lawyers as well. And in that regard, as you may be aware, just the Korean Korean economic power is becoming much more growing all over the world, such as for example, Samsung Electronics, etc. And do you have any future plan of your firm just concerning development of Korean business? For example, you have some kind of plan to open some kind of office in Asian area, or just including the Korea, or some kind of you have some plan to some kind of set up some affiliate with the Korean law firms, etc.
we have some connections to Korean law firms. We are members of two large international networks of law firms, and have also personal connections of friends working as lawyers in Korea, and also want to to do more work for Korean companies, to having partners in our firm who primarily concentrate on the Korean business. So that's the plan of our firm. We are doing this. As far as the legal market is concerned, we will see what will happen in Korea, since in Germany it was in the 90s that foreign law firms became entitled to open offices in Germany, and they took over 90% of the large business law firms in Germany. So that 90% of these law firms really vanished since they were taken over by US and UK law firms. And the same, for example, in France. The law firms in France, of course, are based usually in Paris, and I think 95% or so of the law firms in Paris now are UK and US law firms with their local French branch there, and the larger business law firms in France nearly have vanished. There are not many left, only smaller law firms. So the whole business is in the hands of UK and US law firms. Also in China and in Asia, in countries where it's permitted already, these law firms took over a lot of the work. And I could imagine that also in Korea, if this will become possible, that many Korean law firms of high reputation will do a merger with UK or US law firms. You know, these US law firms pay a lot of money to the senior partners as a fee if they do a merger with them, and then they are doing it. And so that's the way it happened, for example, in Frankfurt in the 90s, and happened in many countries of the world, in larger countries, of course. They will not do this in countries like Finland or so, in smaller countries which are not so important, but they did it clearly in France, less in Italy. It seems to be difficult to do it due to the Italian culture. It's more difficult there, and in the southern European countries it did not work in this way, but it clearly worked in Germany, particularly in Frankfurt, and maybe that you will have the same experience in Seoul. So we will see how this will develop. But already now the large Korean companies very often work together with these large US law firms. So open their office there and to take over Korean law firms, and I could imagine that it will develop in this way in Korea as well.
Most of Korean law firms are currently concerned about this kind of situations. We already knew the phenomena which happened in Germany and France, but unfortunately, in Japan, the such kind of merger and execution are taken by the American law firms is not so serious. The German events happen in Germany and France. But so we are just wait and see. What you're saying is possibly Koreans, even if small countries, economic power is.
But Korean is an important country economically, therefore it will make sense. And they have these large international companies in Korea, therefore it will make sense. And Japan, of course, it would have been a similar situation, as you mentioned. I don't know why it did not happen in Japan. What the reason was that what happened in Germany and France did not happen in Japan. I really don't know the reason for this.
I see. And maybe let us wait and see. And well, in that regard, would you give us some advice to Korean companies who just are eager to enter entering the EU or capital or any EU market. And also, in addition to that, would you give some the practical tips to the Korean lawyers? Because currently, the number of Korean lawyers is becoming much larger and larger, and they are very competitive. And right now, they have some difficulty getting job in Korean legal market, and therefore nowadays young lawyers they change their attention to the overseas legal market rather than the Korean legal market, and therefore to the Korean companies and also Korean legal professionals, would you give some practical tips to them?
Yes, we did for Korean company. We did work primarily in distribution. So I personally am specialized also in distribution law, the EU antitrust law, which is very important in connection with distribution law. And my experience was that Korean companies sometimes have worldwide distribution contracts which have been drafted by US law firms, extremely complicated as all these US contracts, and then they try to apply them also in Europe, but you have to change them. You have to adapt them to European antitrust law, for example, and the legal regime is different. You have in Germany you have some law on general business conditions, which is rather strict, what you don't have in the US. Under US law, you can really squeeze a distributor in a way which would be illegal in Germany, and therefore you can't use worldwide contracts for all over the world. You have to adapt your contracts, and that's an important work which has to be done for Korean companies distributing in Europe, and as I mentioned, and just Frankfurt is the center of the distribution of Koreans in Europe, so that's just a place where they need this kind of advice.
Okay, but the Korean young lawyers, maybe do you think Frankfurt is a good place for the young lawyers to just?
If they are lawyers educated in Korea and work in Germany, that's always a problem. You have to apply the national law, and so if as a German lawyer you practice law in Korea, you can sometimes advise the Korean companies on German law, but you can't really advise them on Korean law, and that's the same concerning Korean lawyers in Germany. So, of course, you have primarily you have the level of national law, and therefore it's difficult to work as a lawyer in a country where you don't know the law. On the other hand, sometimes you have European law. I'm specialized in European antitrust law, that I could practice all over Europe. You have the same legal system in this respect all over Europe, so it's less national. And then very often, yes, you have many legal fields where you don't have a legal code, where you have really the contracts, and which really outline all obligations and rights of the parties, and you don't need a lot of knowledge about the legal system of the country, since it's not reflected in the code. If you look at the German Civil Code, the BGB, it does not treat most types of contract and of business which we have nowadays, since it's very old and the economy has changed completely. Most parts of typical kinds of agreements are not regulated in the Civil Code. But of course you have case law, you have court decisions on interpretation of these kinds of agreements that you have to know. So therefore it's always difficult to work as a lawyer in a country where you had not studied the law, since you can advise on foreign law, but not on the law of the respective country. So that's always a bit difficult.
Yeah, but there's at least some kind of some cooperations between the German lawyers and the Korean lawyers. Maybe if they just bilaterally, just jointly represent the Korean companies, then just maybe the Korean lawyers will play some role.
Of course, that we always have. We have these networks. We have these networks between law firms all over the world, and we are always cooperating with them. That you have to do, of course, so that you sometimes also work together on a case. We had case of fake products. We worked together with law firms in Germany, in Italy, in Eastern Europe, and China, and the United States. You have to work together with them on these cases, since the law of several countries will play a role. Of course, these are cases where very often the clients decide to take one law firm having offices in all these countries, since then they have one-stop shopping. They have one law firm, only get the bills from one law firm and have not to coordinate anything. So it depends. But that sometimes separate law firms are cooperating in such matters. Other cases they take just one law firm.
Okay, but it's just in terms of cost effectiveness, I think it's affiliations and some kind of continuous kind of cooperations among the international law firms will be much more effective. Yeah. Okay, and also I heard this. You are very just kind of leading authorities in the area of the arbitrations, alternative dispute regulations, and nowadays, every dispute is becoming much more internationalized, and therefore, the arbitration, the function of arbitration is becoming much more important, as far as I understand. And how about how in Germany is ADR is much more popular, but in Korea is we still court is much more conservative to any other alternate dispute resolution process, and therefore, for example, the Korean representative arbitration institution is Korean Commercial Arbitration Board, but only just the case which such institutions take care of per year is around only 300 or 400 cases. But how about in Germany? Is that the same, or is it different?
Yes, in case of large important agreements among larger companies, you very often have arbitration clauses, so that the matters are handled by arbitral tribunals. That's quite common. That's also a language issue. Arbitration will be in English language. If you have court proceedings, the agreements are in English, the emails, the correspondence, everything is in English. People involved don't speak German, so it's so complicated to have court proceedings in different languages than the whole business relationship is. That makes it too complicated, and then as far as timing is concerned, sometimes court proceedings take a long time, and nowadays companies are looking at perhaps at the next 1 or 2 years. So we have cases pending in first instance since more than 5 years or so. The managing directors who had started to initiate these cases have gone in the meantime. Nobody is interested anymore in these cases since they take too much time. Arbitration is usually takes a bit less time. It also takes time, but a bit less. So that's one of the and it's secret. And if you have a large case at court, it's public. That also the companies don't like. So there are many reasons that these larger matters are handled by arbitration and not by state courts. But we must say the usual way is to try to reach a settlement. Since everybody knows, if you go to court, the judge will try to settle the matter. If you go to arbitration, they will try to settle the matter. So therefore, the lawyers can settle it prior to starting any court proceedings. Usually 90% or so of the cases are settled, and therefore you have neither state court proceedings nor arbitration proceedings, but negotiations and settlements. Since these proceedings, either court proceedings or arbitration proceedings, take so much time, the management does not have the time. They have to do their job. If they have to handle this litigation in addition to their job, they are getting mad about this. It takes much money, much time. So economically, usually it does not make too much sense to have these court proceedings or arbitration proceedings unless it's a precedent. You want to know the legal situation, but usually someone wants to get money, and if that's the only purpose of the proceedings, you can't try to reach a settlement out of court. So that's the usual way. So the clients are rendering the lawyers for reaching a good settlement and not for starting court proceedings usually.
Yeah, you're right. And nowadays, time is of essence, and therefore, just the court proceedings, like it takes too much time. District court levels and appellate court levels and Supreme Court levels, and but normally just arbitrations, like you'll be resolved just only one times, and therefore I think that is more effective in terms of timings and cost. And therefore I think the ADR is a much more promising field. But it's because I have so many other questions, but it's because time constraint is like I would like later on, if I have a chance, to just I ask some question about online dispute resolution and any other questions. And how about you? Are you frequent traveler to the Seoul because you are the German-Korean lawyer associations?
Yes, not too often, but regularly I come to Korea. Yeah.
How about this year?
No, this year not yet. No.
Well, you should come to the Seoul frequently because you are the very important positions as president of Germany and German-Korean Lawyers Associations. I hopefully just see you in Seoul just pretty soon.
Yes, I'm sure that I will come soon. Perhaps in October I will go there.
Oh, yeah, it's, yeah. And then just maybe I think we will prepare some kind of some special lecture, which will be delivered to the Korean company and young lawyers.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And anyhow, just even if you are very busy schedules, I appreciate your time and your kind explanations, and I think it's very it's helpful. Your comment is very helpful to the Korean companies who are just have interest in entering into the EU market, and also young Korean lawyers who are interested in the EU legal market, especially they are very interested, frankly, because of the recent Brexit the event. And lastly, do you have any other comments, or do you have some things to further say something?
No, I think we covered a lot of issues about Korea and the legal system and so on, I think.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.